Get money back as a free bet if your horse finishes second, third or fourth in this race at the Punchestown Festival today. Paddy Power!
Hello everyone, welcome to the road to Punchestown. Ruby Walsh and I are coming to you from Naas Racecourse, and we're going to be going through all of the top races from Punchestown over the 5 days. I'm really looking forward to it, aren't you?
So am I. It's just not Punchestown weather. Like, usually we get a bit of rain, but not frost.
It's freezing. It's absolutely freezing. Let's have a look at some races to warm us up. We've got loads and loads to get through, so let's get started. So we're going starting with Tuesday, day one, and we'll start with the Champion Chase sponsored by William Hill. It was won last year by Energumene. We can have a look at the betting. The dual Champion Chase winner at Cheltenham is the 1-3 favourite. Gentleman to Me, an interesting winner, 9-2. Blue Lord, 8-1. It's 20-1 and upwards the rest. We're going to start by having a look at the Queen Mother Champion Chase, in which Energumene was able to win quite well.
Yeah, and a slight change of tactics, obviously, for Energumene in the Champion Chase to those that had been implemented in the Clarence House. He booked out just behind Editor de Geet. Obviously, Edwardstone sat behind him, and Captain Guinness down the inside in the beige and blue colours will reoppose tomorrow afternoon. But he was always to the 4th, 5th fence. Lydia landed right beside Editor de Geet. Nube Negra was wide. Last ditch, top of the hill. He lands in front as they get to the top of the hill, and he was always in command. Grenadine made a mistake there. Edwardstone was never really going, and Captain Guinness looked like his only danger as they headed down to 3 out. And I suppose if someone had told you, or away from 3 out down to the home turn, told you before the race that Energumene would only have Captain Guinness to beat, you'd have backed him at any price.
So with his main rivals not turning up, what do we make of this form?
I thought it's solid form. Captain Guinness, to his credit, he's a genuine grade 2 horse, and he runs consistently well. He falls between the rock and the hard place. He could get through in a weakish group, grade 1 maybe at some stage, but look, Energumene, as he had the year before, I actually think he was probably more impressive the second time than he was the first time. He galloped all the way to the line. The rain came for him, but he was definitely a different horse, or a better horse than the one we saw in the Clarence House.
OK, we're going to have a look at last year's race in which he beat Chacun Pessoir. I'm interested in what you think tactics-wise, because at the start of this season I was thinking, OK, Energumene, you can be tactically versatile, and then I was looking at that Champion Chase win and thinking, well, actually, maybe you are better going forward. This time last year, he tracked Chacun Pessoir. What do you think tactics and what he needs?
He did track Chacun Pessoir, but they went a good gallop in Punchestown last year. Patrick Mullins rode Chacun Pessoir. Up on the outside was Envoy Alain, and Paul was just always behind them. That was Andy Dufresne falling. Paul was always just behind Chacun Pessoir and Energumene. But look, this was definitely drier ground, and I think on slow ground Energumene is a better horse. We've had a really wet April here in Ireland, and I think it's going to be on the slow side. He missed the second last. Chacun Pessoir got a run on him, but I think this is the last really good race that Chacun Pessoir ran, and whereas Energumene seems to have progressed forward, Chacun Pessoir has regressed. He runs on Wednesday. Captain Guinness is in the back of your shot, or Tuesday even, and Energumene won well. Has he gone forward, or does he just maybe not have the turn of foot he once has? Is that why he needs to go more forward? Is he a real gallop and stay in 2-miler? He probably is.
Okay.
A gallop and stay in 2-miler. There was a 2.5 mile beginner's chase he won as well, of course, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Okay, all of his dangers come from his own stable. Let's have a look at Blue Lord next, shall we? He was in winning form at the Punchestown Festival as a novice last season as well. We'll go on to discuss what he's managed to achieve this season. Also, last year's run, Ruby, what did you make of it?
It was workmanlike. It wasn't spectacular. He beats Course Sublime. Saint Sam made the run, and Paul booked him out handy in the Simon Munir Isaac's away colours. He was always to the fore. Now, Course Sublime on the outside in the maroon and white stripes of Chris Jones's. He's going to prove the main danger. But I guess when I watched this race last year, I was kind of thinking, maybe does Blue Lord 1, 2.5? Saint Sam made a mistake at the second last. Course Sublime gets away, and Blue Lord needed every yard of the trip to beat him. Now, he was really good at Leopardstown at Christmas. He wasn't as good at the Dublin Racing Festival. He was disappointing in the Ryanair at Cheltenham, and I think Blue Lord is a bit to find.
So do I. I don't think this sort of narrow defeat of Course Sublime sort of really...
Sublime, not Sublime.
Well, either, probably, to be honest.
All right.
Either. I'm feeling flexible. But I think that is one standout performance from Blue Lord, isn't it, at Christmas? Other than that,
no, and
there's nothing doing.
At the time, it was standout because of how he beat Chacun Pessoir. But when you look at what Chacun Pessoir has done since, maybe it wasn't so standout.
Going into the Dublin Racing Festival, though, he was thought to be a shoo-in, really, for the Dublin Chase. He ran into...
He was that price anyway.
He was, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He ran into Gentleman de Me, and Gentleman de Me was very much in tune this day.
He was, and Gentleman de Me seemed to have regained his mojo. He was obviously needed his first run. He was disappointing in the Single Creek, but he was back to his best here at the Dublin Racing Festival. Danny Mullins stepped in at that late-minute substitution for Mark Walsh, but I thought Gentleman de Me, we saw a different side to him here. He settled for the first time. He wasn't a tearaway. You can see Danny into the back straight here. He had no problem getting the lead on him, and that added a dimension to how Gentleman de Me could be ridden. And he jumped really well on this occasion. He attacked his fences. Was really good at the fourth last and the third last, and he put Blue Lord and what's Alan King's horse's name behind him?
So Royal.
So Royal to the sword a long way from home, and it was a good performance from him again at the last ditch. Danny saw a good stride on him, he pinged it, and that's what you expect 2 mile chasers to be doing, isn't it?
But the ground, I mean, you've mentioned already that it's not going to be a sort of spring-like Punchestown Festival. That's what Gentleman de Me would like, isn't it?
I think it is, and at the Dublin Racing Festival, whilst it was well watered, it was more spring ground than winter ground, and I think that definitely showed Gentleman de Me in his best light, and I think beating Blue Lord, I think he's going to have to improve on that if he's going to beat Energumene.
Tactics-wise, what's going to happen between Gentleman de Me and Energumene?
I think they'll both go forward. I think it'll be a great race to watch. Gentleman de Me has freshness on his side, and Energumene has proven class on his side.
And you're siding with Energumene, I take it?
I think I am. 1-3. Brave, haven't I?
Let's see if we can make you braver during the course of the show. Let's move on to the Dooley Insurance Group Champion Novice Chase. It's over 3 miles. And Journey With Me is the 5-2 favourite ahead of Sir Gerhard, and a few of horses that finish behind Sir Gerhard. He himself behind Flame Bearer are taking him on again. Let's have a look at that Fairyhouse Gold Cup Novice Chase. It was a Grade 1 last time. Sir Gerhard second, Appreciated third, James de Burley fourth in the end.
Yeah, I tell you what Sir Gerhard did here was jump a lot better than he had done at Cheltenham. Now, that wasn't going to be hard, was it? James de Burley booked out good and handy. Appreciated sat behind, but Sir Gerhard, it was noticeable how much better he jumped. Now, Appreciated, he did start going left. This is the last fence, first time round. Appreciated, it was the first time we saw him going left, and Sir Gerhard got ground on him in the air. I didn't think I'd see that. One of the fences up to Ballyhack, they all jumped it well, but I really thought how noticeable it was, how much better Sir Gerhard was even jumping than Appreciated. Again, Appreciated out to his left. And he's going to be going same way around the Punchestown, is right-handed as well, so I can't see that being a plus for him. But here, I thought, yeah, Sir Gerhard's going to win. Flame Bearer had been on the front end all the way, but Sir Gerhard doesn't get by him.
No.
And it didn't look to me like he wanted another half a mile. It looked like another half a mile he was going to be further behind.
He's slightly deliberate at his fences, isn't he?
He is, but he was much better, I thought, on this occasion. I know he's a Ballymore winner, but I just thought with how the race had been run, the way Flame Bearer had gone through it, I thought Sir Gerhard was certain to get by him, and he couldn't. And it kind of left me thinking, do any of these want 3 miles?
Yeah, that's kind of where I am, I'm afraid. If any of them might need it, it might be James de Burley even, really. Yeah, but he'd have to calm down a little.
A little bit, he'd have to settle a bit better. But even looking at them, say, in the yard, James de Burley, and they've all been to Cheltenham and they've all been to Fairyhouse. James de Burley is probably the one that looks like maybe he hasn't been.
Right, OK, so he's the one that looks fresher than the other two.
He looks rounder anyway, yeah.
Right, OK. And what do we make about the jockey bookings there? Do they remain the same compared to Fairyhouse?
Yeah, but look, we're standing here and I can't look at that race thinking, which one of them would you want to be on? I'd say Paul feels the same.
Right. OK. Let's have a look at Journey With Me, shall we? And we haven't picked out his latest Nace success. He went there rather than go to Cheltenham. We're having another look at his second to Impervious, because Impervious obviously has gone on to frank the form at the Cheltenham Festival. Yeah,
we have. Look, his Nace form, weight-wise, it was a good performance, but I think it was easier to put context on this. You've had Hador, Manila Crooner, and obviously Journey With Me and Impervious. And look, weight-wise, this was a really good performance from Impervious, and why a lot of people fancied her going to Cheltenham, but that is solid form. Journey With Me was a bit keen early, jumped to the front at the 5th fence, and then was always sort of in control, but Brian Hayes had put a target on Rachel Blackmore's back on Impervious, and when they quickened off the bend here, they drop Hador, who's rated 140 in Susanna Ritchie's colours, runs in a handicap chase on Wednesday, and these two quicken away all the way down to the last. This was over 2.5 miles. They're both really good at the last fence, and Impervious is just too quick for Journey With Me. But I think when you look at Manila Crooner and Hador, they're horses that are relevant and well known to us all, and so is Impervious. This was just to give a bit of context to Journey With Me, and probably a worthy favourite.
Yes, this was a lot better than he'd managed previously, and he went on and built next time. Does he want 3 miles?
That's the question. Do any of them want 3 miles? I don't know.
It could be one of those races, actually.
It could be. I think it's a really, really tricky race.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting. And Classic Getaway, look, he's only had the one run. We haven't saw him since he won his beginners when he beat Manila Cooner and Journey With Me, who fell. So, look, he's fresh, but he had a setback, and he could be the one.
Yeah, here we are. Journey With Me of the trio on the left-hand side here, and he'll seem to scare himself at this fence slightly. Classical Getaway is not very fluent either, and unfortunately we lose Journey With Me at the second last. This was when he hadn't quite got his act together over fences.
No, he hadn't, but I was really taken with Classic Getaway. I thought he jumped super on this occasion. Obviously Manila Cooner had been placed in an Alma Bartlett, and look, Classic Getaway probably doesn't have the hurdle rating to beat these horses. He did look a much better horse on his only start over fences. He hasn't got a whole lot of experience, but he's probably the one I'd chance.
Okay. Classic Getaway, pedigree-wise, you'd think he would stay the trip.
You would. Pedigree-wise, you most definitely would. So it'll be interesting. Look, he's 7-2. Danny rides him. I think that's a really complicated race to try and pick the winner of.
Can you give Farinelli any chance? He made his chase debut last time and finished second to Backerson.
Yeah, in front of Shack and Poursois, over 3 miles at Cork. So that's an interesting run. It's interesting placing from a team that are known to think outside the box.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, good luck with that race, guys. Good luck. Good luck is all I'm going to say. The KPMG Champion Novice Hurdle over 2 miles is the next one we're going to have a look at. And this is a rematch of those horses that chased home Marine Nationale. Facile Viga is the 8-13 favourite, and we're going to have a really good look at the Supreme. Yeah,
we are. Look, it was obviously it's always an interesting race to watch, and much anticipated. High definition booked out really handy towards the 4. Facile Viga was mid-division. Il Était Temps and Diverge were behind him. Marine Nationale pulls back behind Facile Viga after starting just in front of him. Into the back straight. Again, they're all just about back. Well, midfield, Facile Viga. The other two are back of midfield. Danny is following Paul, and Patrick is following the two of them on Diverge, and it's from the 4th last that the race develops, and it's Il Était Temps, the one you want to keep an eye on here. Makes a mistake there with Danny, and Danny when he lands has to squeeze fast, or Marine Nationale gets up by him and closes the door. Danny has to switch out, but this is a poor place in Cheltenham to be making ground. Up the hill, up onto the top of the hill, Il Était Temps goes forward. Now he gets racing on the outside, which then eventually pushes Facile Viga through. Now Diversion, the maroon and white stripes, 3 from the back. Patrick is watching and letting it all develop in front of him. Danny is raced up on the outside. That's getting everybody interested, bar Mikey O'Sullivan, who's pulling back, but everybody else is going forward, and now the gaps start to open in front of Paul Townend and Facile Viga. Il Était Temps is very wide, but to me he's run his race from 4 out to 3 out. Yes, I think that's a hard thing to do. The gap opens between Dark Raven and Ollie Murphy's horse for Paul Townend. Facile Viga tanks into that gap going to the second last, jumps it well. Marine Nationale's coming down the outside, and Diverge, who's been looking on, is picking up the pieces. Now I know Henry's horse in behind in the white cap in the pocket, he goes on to win at Aintree, so we know the form is rock solid. Off the bend here you're thinking, what's Facile Viga going to find? And he does start to quicken, but it's just as the second last fence appears beside him, the next 4 or 5 strides you start thinking, is he starting to get empty? And he reaches for the last hurdle and doesn't land Galopin, lands in a bit of a heap, bumps into Marine Nationale, and ultimately fades to finish second. But I think on a different day, the winner's a very, very good horse, but I do expect Facile Viga to uphold the form with Diverge, and I think Il Était Temps could even get between Facile Viga and Diverge. In the aftermath, Willie Mullins was a bit critical again of Paul Townend on board Facile Viga. What do you make of all that? I didn't think so. Is it the touchstone of Facile Viga? It could be. I don't know. We watched it. I was watching that on the drone from overhead, and as I was watching it, I was shouting at the screen, "Get into that gap, Paul." The race was getting hot, and to me, I don't think so. I think he petered out on the day. Now, I did actually have a sit on him during the week, and it's the first time I ever rode him, and he will give you some feel. I think he'll win. I think it's more that what I was trying to drive at was that does Willie Mullins, just because he believes in Facile Viga, he couldn't quite believe that the horse might be beaten, having been given every chance. I haven't ridden him on last Tuesday or Thursday, whenever I rode him. I can see why Willie Mullins has the opinion of him he has.
Okay, interesting. And Il Était Tom, if you were Danny Mullins, what would you have done when Il Était Tom missed that hurdle?
It's very easy to say it. You're standing here, but when you missed the fourth last, you have to take your medicine. You should have stayed beside Patrick and then waited till he got down the hill to come again. But you can't. He reacted to the mistake to try and hold a position or get a position. But when you miss the fourth last over hurdles on the old course, you can't do that.
So that's your basis of the forecast, Il Était Tom chasing home Paso Vega because of that. Right, interesting. That's how we see day one at Punchestown. Time now to have a look at the Grade 1s on the Wednesday at Punchestown, and we're going to start with the Irish Mirror Novice Hurdle over 3 miles, or as good as 3 miles. And this is quite an interesting race, I think, because it brings together lots of different form lines. Gaelic Warrior second in the Ballymore, the even money favourite. Affidel Fury second in the Albert Bartlett is 4-1. Salvador Ziggy second in the Pertemps is 6-1. So let's go through those in detail. First of all, we're going to focus quite closely on Gaelic Warrior, trying 3 miles for the first time and going back to right-handed, which will surely suit.
You'd have to think going right-handed is going to suit anyway, whatever but anything else. Look, and then the question mark is, will he settle here? You can see him at Clonmel in his first run this season, where he was anxious to get on with things and actually caused a false start. So that was over 2 miles, and automatically when you look at that, you're thinking, oh, is that really a horse that wants to go that far up and trip up the 3 miles? But as he's progressed through the year, he looks that way. Now he does jump to his right, and he was obviously Paul Townham was trying to keep him wide in Clonmel on this occasion. When he got to the last in Leopardstown, he heads for the grandstand, but look, he still managed to get the job done, and he wasn't probably as pronounced then at Cheltenham in the Ballymore. Champ Kiley made the run, and Impere Pass is sitting directly behind Champ Kiley, and Gaelic Warrior elected to follow Impere Pass. Now, he was keen enough in Patrick's hands. You can see Patrick trying to get him to switch off there, but he does settle on Impere Pass's tail, and if he was a runaway, this was the ideal opportunity to do that. Champ Kiley misses the first in the back, and Gaelic Warrior shoots through on the inside of Impere Pass, yet Patrick Mullins was able to get him back and got him back behind Impere Pass quite quickly. He follows Paul Townend through then on the inside as they approach the home turn, and Champ Kiley goes right and bumps into Hermes Alain, and he's just not good enough to beat Impere Pass on the day. He doesn't have the gears to go with him, and Impere Pass quickens up to go away and win well, but he does keep going well. Good land in the yellow colours had won the Nathaniel Lacey novice hurdle at Leopardstown over 2 miles and 6, and he doesn't close Gaelic Warrior down. Gaelic Warrior keeps going. Hermes Allen obviously went to Aintree and disappointed as well, but he was a shallow winner. So look, stepping up in trip, he'll have to settle, but I think the way he saw it out to the line here suggests he's a horse that will get the trip.
I'm interested with that point that you make about where Patrick Mullins was able to take him back when he'd sort of jumped forward, because I was looking at him and I was thinking about that start at Clonmel. I was thinking how strongly he was travelling. I was looking at his breeding and how he looks like basically bred for 1.5 miles on the flat. I was thinking 3 miles, but I do take your point about at least he does seem to be more tractable these days.
Yeah, he's forward going and maybe a little bit hot more so than he's actually keen or hard to ride. And I think with a bit of cover in this race, he should be able to settle, and I'm hoping he'll have too much class for them.
Let's have a look at the Albert Bartlett, shall we? It was won by Stay Away Faye from the front. Affidel Fury, who was buried out the back, came through to finish second. Favre de Champdou and Embassy Gardens Hyria Post were both pulled up. And there are a couple of other horses that we've highlighted here. Sandor Clegane and 3 Card Black, who aren't actually running in this race, but are running elsewhere at this meeting. I'm disappointed by that. How about you?
So am I. And I guess when the race there, both 3 Card Bragg and Sandor Clegane are running in, was introduced, it probably wasn't aimed at horses who would be placed or knocking on the door in Grade 1s. It was for horses that cost less than a certain amount of the sales, and they qualify for these races. It was to give every horse an opportunity, but I think it slightly backfired in this case. When you take Sandor Clegane, who is last at this point in the Albert Bartlett, but is going to run on to be second, is now qualified for a lesser race. Look, I didn't write the conditions. Somebody was trying to be all-encompassing, and to me, a shot racing in the foot, to tell you the truth. But down the second last hurdle, I thought Sam Ewing gave Affidel Fury a beautiful ride. He crept around on the inside, didn't come around anybody, and he's coming with his chance off the home turn. Stay Away phase in the middle. 3 Card Bragg, I thought the trip would really suit him, but
me too.
He didn't really get home, did he?
No, so you can possibly see why he's heading for the 2 mile 4 furlong hurdle instead. Maybe you could argue it about Sandor Clegane. Sandor Clegane's looking very, that's 3 Card Bragg being highlighted. Sandor Clegane in the red and white looked very unlucky, but you look at the winner, who has run since. Maybe he had quite a hard race here because he's seen off all the other horses that were attending him, and the horse that's finished closest to him, well, there's 2 horses that finished close to him, have come from quite a way back.
They have come a long way off the pace, let's be clear about it. It's just fading, so is Streetcar Bragg. But Streetcar Bragg is only running again at the end. Obviously Corbett's Cross was the one who ran out, but it's a solid race, an Albert Bartlett. Horses have come from there in the past. The Nice Guy has done both. He won last year. He obviously won the Albert Bartlett and came back and won the Daily Mirror. So it'll be interesting to see how Affidel Fury gets on, but I think he has to improve a little bit. I think Gaelic Warrior's form is slightly stronger.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Affidel Fury's a proven stayer.
Well, he seemed to really relish the staying trip there, didn't he? And his jumping was a bit better as well than it had been previously. Let's have a look at another horse that's a real player. This is Salvador Ziggy, who was second to Good Time Johnny in the Pertemps. A novice running in that, off a British mark of 1:47. He ran really well.
He did top weight. Now, he did have the aid of Aidan Kelly's claim, who claimed 7 off Salvador Ziggy. But if you watch him here, he's in the middle of your shot. Just as they turn at the top of the hill, he does run into a bit of traffic there and loses his position as they're heading down towards the second last. Now, ultimately, what does it cost him? Well, he'd prefer if it didn't happen, and he misses the second last hurdle. Now, he did run close to the pace. Your winner, Good Time Johnny, is a long way back.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah, and he's going to make up a lot of ground. Now, Good Time Johnny had all the luck on this occasion. He didn't get much luck in running at Aintree, but whereas Salvador Ziggy was in the race all the way. He's not the one running by tired horses. He's competed with all of these horses and is then trying to beat them, and he just gets run out by Good Time Johnny. But he's a definite player. He won a novice hurdle at the Galway Festival last year. He's improved at every run for Gordon Elliott, and you could easily say that was an improvement again.
I think it was, and he was returning from a 5-month break as well. Let's have a look at the runners again just before we leave this race and wrap it up. I think he's a big player. I think he's going to be interesting over fences as well. Are there any of the other ones? There's some first-time headgear there. The like of Franciscan Rock and Calusi Star have first-time headgear. A couple of them have pulled up, as I mentioned, in the Albert Bartlett. Any others you can give a chance to?
Look, obviously Embassy Gardens and Favre de Champs do have the best novice form, but they both have to improve from return to their form from disappointments at Cheltenham, and they can do, but it takes a bit of bravery to see it.
Yeah, I suppose the only thing I would say is they were up on that pace and maybe did a bit too much, particularly Embassy Gardens.
Both were beaten a long way from home.
They were. Right, OK, let's move on to the Punchestown Gold Cup, shall we? Race of the week?
Oh, it is now.
Now that we know the Brave Man's Game is running.
I wasn't sure it was going to be,
yeah.
But it is now. And look, Galopin, Brave Man's Game, the Ryanair winner is in there, and Hewick, who was running so well for a long way in the Gold Cup before he fell even. Fury Road obviously fell early at Aintree, and Faster Slow ran a cracker in the Ultima.
Let's take a look at the Gold Cup form first, shall we? Galopin de Champs obviously beat Brave Man's Game by 7 lengths in the end, and Hewick, who also reopposes, took a tumble 2 out. Yeah,
and you're looking for the shape of a race. Obviously Hewick in here, he's going to race handily. He raced handily in the Gold Cup as well. He jumped out with Brave Man's Game and a high senior. But Hewick goes more forward than even Brave Man's Game does. Galopin de Champs obviously at the back, because as they face down the back straight, you can see where Hewick is now in front of Brave Man's Game, and they're at times a long way in front of Galopin de Champs. He was a long way off the pace. Yeah,
and Paul said that he thought that the winner had done really well to win, to come from the position that he had. He kind of got shuffled back right at the start, he felt.
Yeah, he did, but I think when you'll see the horses, when they get back up to the last ditch, which is 6 from home, there's a high senior falls and brings down, badly interferes with a Plutar and brings down Sounds Russian. It gets Galopin de Champs closer. Brilliant jump from Galopin de Champs, and you see the horses fall, and now look where Paul is all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So at the right time in the race, Galopin de Champs is plenty close to the front. Down to 3 out. Here you're thinking Hewitt could win the Gold Cup.
Well, and also the way that Galopin de Champs pecks, I thought, oh no, but it snaps back on it.
It does, but even there going to the bend, I mean, the body language is Jordan Game for Paul Townend, but Hewick does fall going to the second last, then Brave Man Games appears, but you're automatically drawn to Paul Townend's body language. But to be fair to Brave Man's Game, he opens up and puts some distance between himself and Conflated. They quickened all the way to the last fence, these two, or look to anyway, and they both get really good jumps to the last fence again. It was what everybody wanted to see, is what you hope the Gold Cup would be, and then Galopin de Champs outstays him from there up. But that's 3.25 miles on a stiff finish. We were in Punchestown a fortnight ago, Lydia. It's a much different track. It's probably more resembles King George.
Yeah, okay.
And you look at Brave Man's Game, he got tired the last half a furlong.
That was a race. going towards the final fence. Now, maybe we saw that Galopin had plenty left, but as you say, it was the final pitiless Cheltenham Hill that put 7 lengths between the two of them. It's also right-handed as well, which is something of a brave man's game. We've seen him be so fluid at Kempton.
Yeah, we have, and look, it's the pace of the race. I mean, Galopin, Paul was probably given out about the position he was in, but smaller field, I know it should be easier to hold the position, but I think Brave Man's Game will find it easier to travel at Punchestown than maybe Galopin win. I think it'll be a really good race.
Okay, interesting. There's also Envoy Allen. He's won the Ryanair now. 3 in a row it was for their owners, Cheveley Parksted, following Allaho, who was sadly absent, having won the previous 2 seasons. Let's talk about this performance. He does run pretty well at Cheltenham. I know he's hit the deck once, but largely, if you look at his Cheltenham form as a whole, he has got quite a good portfolio.
He has, and he was always travelling really well in the Ryanair. It was a strong gallop to the first fence, and he was doing a half speed with Rachel Blackmore. French Dynamite goes up by him, and Rachel switches him outside French Dynamite in the run to the second. But he attacked his fences. He was really forward going and through the air, and he looked always to be happy in this race. Now, I'm not going to lie, I gave him no chance going to Cheltenham. I couldn't have him in the Ryanair, but he was a different horse. Last ditch, Rachel Blackmore's trying to slow him down. Shishkin had been on and off the bridle. Blue Lord was starting to struggle. Janet Dill had never been going. But look at Rachel, she's absolutely cantered. Now he misses the 4th last. Everyone got drawn to the mistakes of Shishkin in this race. Envoy Allen made 1 or 2 as well, and he comes straight back on the bridle from his mistake at the 4th last. He pecks here at the 3rd last, and again your eye will get drawn to the yellow and black because Shishkin walks through it. But to be fair to Envoy Allen, it wasn't smooth for him either.
No.
But he's back on the bridle, look straight away, and she times her challenge, then jumps upsides at the 2nd last, and away he goes, and he quickens to the last fence, and he was good, really good.
2 things about him. 1, does he need to be fresh?
That could be the most obvious thing at the ball. And 2,
And
will
2,
he stay?
Well, I think he probably will. I mean, he has seen out 3 miles before, hasn't he? But in a lesser company. I'm basically wondering, is he really top table stuff? But when we're talking about the likes of Galopin de Champs, who was brilliant in the Gold Cup, Brave Man's Game, who was brilliant in a King George, is he really that standard? I mean, the market says he isn't.
The market says he isn't, but he's still a fairly good horse, and he adds to the contest. It'll be a great race.
Oh, he does?
I'm looking forward to it.
Is Fast or Slower 66 to 1 outsider of the lot?
Yep.
Okay. Short and
Would
sweet.
you fancy any of those over his mark in the Ultimate?
No, I wouldn't. No.
Would you? Would Corey Granville have beaten any of them in the Ultimate?
Right. Let's move on to Thursday, shall we?
When the Kinloch Bray Chase was put into the programme, whenever that was, it was restricted to horses trained in Munster.
Right.
So that the Drapers and the Moors couldn't have a run on it.
Interesting. There you go. You
So
learn.
they've done that before. Now that was Munster, it was parochial, poor Munster.
Yeah.
But they did do it.
Cork. Yeah. Sorry, Johnny.
And we now have the Grade 1s from Thursday to do. But first of all, we asked you a question via social media, and it revolved around Willie Mullins and those horses of his that were expected to run well. Well, most of them did at the Cheltenham Festival. Some of them didn't run so well. Yeah. And so this was what we asked you on the social poll. It was essentially which of these horses is the likeliest to bounce back at Punchestown and why? Blue Lord, Echoes in Rain, Brandy Love and Ilete Tom. And it looks like you all felt Brandy Love was the answer. I was going to ask you, before we found out the result, which one you would have voted for.
I think that's most likely to get involved, probably Ilete Tom.
You've expanded that argument already.
Yeah, I do. I think going right-handed is a negative for Brandy Love. That said, she's running back against the same horses and surely will be ridden more prominently.
Yes, we'll have a chat about Brandy Love and Echoes in Rain in a moment. Blue Lord you couldn't have either, really, could you? No. Giant's Causeway, who's a roadie regular, had this to say about it. He voted for Echoes in Rain because I think Leopardstown left its mark on Blue Lord at Christmas. I can see that because it was such a huge performance, seemingly, although you would argue maybe it was just flattered. Brandy Love would be better going left-handed. And Il était temps benefited from Facile Viga and High Definition going too hard in the Dublin Racing Festival. Echoes in Rain came fourth in the mares, and I think she has question marks, less question marks than the others. Other than fewer question marks than...
Sorry, Giants Causeway. Now you know how the rest of us feel. You have to be grammatically perfect.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to drive up standards. That's all I'm trying to do. Right, let's have a look at that. Honestly, excellent points, Giants Causeway, and we'll come back to Echoes in Rain in a few moments' time. Ladbrokes Champion Stayers Hurdle is the main race of this day.
Thursday.
Over 3 miles. Here's the betting. Tehupo, who was briefly promoted to second and then demoted again on appeal in the Stayers Hurdle at Cheltenham. He's the 2-1 favourite. Classical Dream is 5-2, well beaten there. Monkfish, for it is he, is 9-2 third favourite. And Sire de Burley is 6-1 now. I'm assuming he's 6-1 because basically he's top dog in this division at the moment. But I'm assuming he's 6-1 because he's not expected to run. And if he does run, maybe the fact that he's run at Cheltenham and Daintree might be a bit much.
Yeah.
Or is it just his perpetual underestimation?
Perpetual underestimation, and also I think when you look at both the races at Cheltenham and Aintree, they were run absolutely to suit Sire de Burley. I don't think this race will be.
Right. Okay. Well, let's have a look at what we're talking about then, shall we? First off, and have a look at the Stayers Hurdle from Cheltenham and take a look at that and see what you think of it.
I think when you watch it back home, by the league got an absolute flyer out the gate. Dashel Drasher and Flooring Porter, they're the 3 horses and they're well clear of Sire de Burley and Ashdale Bob. Now obviously the front 3 aren't going to run in Punchestown, so what's your pace going to be in Punchestown? Well, it's going to be Ashdale Bob, I would say. He's beside Sire de Burley, Classical Dream, Tehupo in behind, but they really dragged this race, and again in Aintree, Flooring Porter dragged that race and he ended up with Sire de Burley winning on both occasions. I think it'll be a more tactical affair at Punchestown. Classical Dream grabbed at the third last even, and his goose was cooked down to the second last. He was starting to struggle. Ashdale Bob gets rightly squares up at the second last hurdle. Dashel Drasher came across with Flooring Porter and squares him up, and Sire de Burley gets it down the inside. Blazing Cal is not going to reoppose, and you have Tehupo. Now the one worry for Tehupo would be tomorrow. I think it would really suit him. By Thursday, if the rain ceases, it could have dried up a bit. He's definitely a better horse in good ground, and he doesn't get a clear run up the straight. But I don't know, Lydia, did he ever look like getting to the front? I'm not so sure he did.
No, I don't. But I mean, he's a younger horse. I can see him building on that, and I feel that he might have got closer. I mean, I felt it was the right decision on the day to be promoted to second.
So yeah, and I think you can. I didn't really have a strong opinion, but technically I could see why he was promoted, and probably if he was, should have been left there. But I think the best horse on the day won Sire de Burley, and he since proved that at Aintree. And I think at the line, did it cost Tehupo? No, it only cost him the race. The interference with Dashel Drasher, but it probably did cost him second.
Okay, he's rallying strongly, learning all the time as a stayer, which I think can sometimes, horses can take a while to sort of adapt to at the very top level.
They can, and he's only 6.
I think he is, yeah.
Yeah, he is, and he'll have to. He will, of course, he'll improve, and he's a good horse, and maybe he'll get his day.
Now, you saw Classical Dream there finishing well beaten, but we do have to bear in mind Classical Dream's Punchestown record, don't we? Yeah,
look, he's won at the. I won't say the last three festivals. It's over 4 years, obviously. But here he is winning the novice hurdle when I rode him. After backing up, he's winning. It's just in the Supreme. He came back then 2 years later in 21. Mm-hmm. There was no 20, was there? There wasn't.
There was no 20, yeah, that's right.
So 21, he beat James de Burley in the 3 mile hurdle, and he hadn't had a run in a long time.
He was wearing a hood for the first time this as well.
He was. Patrick rode him on that occasion, and then he came back obviously in 22 when Paul rode him, and he won again when he beat Ashdale Bob. And Sire de Burley and Gentleman's Game, I think it is the grey. I always get those mixed up. I think it's Gentleman's Game. But look, as you said, he has a great record in Punchestown, but he has to overcome a disappointing run at Cheltenham.
It wasn't that great. I mean, it was better last time, but, you know.
It was better in 22 than it was in 23.
It was. Right, OK, let's have a look at this Fairy House Group 2. And I think roadie regulars will enjoy this.
We're going to be grammatically perfect.
Yeah, I'm hoping you will be.
Grade 2.
What did I say?
Group 2.
Did I? Oops.
Yeah, see,
Oops.
1 weekend in Newmarket and you're already on the flat.
I really am. My mind has moved.
1 week even. You're only there at the weekend.
Asterion Falange beat Monkfish, beat Beacon Edge in this Fairy House Grade 2.
Used to be the strawberry hurdle. Yeah, look, it was Beacon Edge jumped out good and prominent under edge. So Blackmore, Asterion Falange was never too far away, and Monkfish was always in the pocket behind them. Now off the home turn, you thought briefly, oh, Monkfish is coming to win here. First run since Punchestown 2 years previously, or almost 2 years previously, and right there, I thought he was quick to win the race, and he doesn't. Asterion Falange keeps pulling out. He had the benefit of a run, a thirdless under his belt. As you said, Monkfish, you imagine he has to improve for this, and Beacon Edge finishes third, but there is that bounce factor. 2 years off, pulling out so quickly, and then you think, well, in levels of form, what has he run to on this occasion? I would have had Monkfish a long way ahead of Asterion Falange and Beacon Edge at his best. That's an encouraging reappearance, but I'm afraid I would be against him at Punchestown.
Yeah, it was 713 days since he'd previously run. He's the Brown Advisory winner from 2021, but as you say, that was quite an encouraging run, but will he recoil from it? It was 2.5 miles as well. I mean, he's surely a thorough stayer. So that thing you said about him coming to win and then not quite managing it. And against Asterion Falange, one of your favourites.
That's all the more reason I thought Monkfish should have got by him.
I knew you'd enjoy talking about that race. I was really relishing it. Are there any bigger prices we should be considering?
Ashdale Bob.
Go on.
I think he's been running really consistently all year. I thought he ran well enough in the stairs hurdle. I think back at Punchestown, Jessica Harrington always has a winner in Punchestown. I think Ashdale Bob could be the one.
Okay. Right, let's move on to the Barberstown Castle Novice Chase, shall we? Over 2 miles. And this is essentially the Arkle versus the Turners, with the Arkle represented by the fabulous El Fabiolo, who upped the best form, novice form of the season in the Irish Arkle, with even better stuff in the Arkle itself.
He did, and it was a strongly run race as we expected. Dysart Dynamo jumped out in front and went a really strong gallop, and Danny let him roll. His jumping was pretty good all the way. I know he ends up on the floor ultimately, but he jumped really well. John Bond sat second, El Fabiolo was in third. Now, I mean this in the best possible way, but obviously the fences in Cheltenham have been lessened over the years as regards stiffness, and Il Fabiolo is quite slick, is the word I'm going to use. Dysart Dynamo to me is a better jumper than Il Fabiolo. You see the difference in the two jumps there, and the further they went, Dysart was stretching him the way he was jumping, whereas El Fabiolo was brushing every fence. This is the last ditch, and I really have to like the way Dysart Dynamo does things. Now, Cheltenham is a stiff enough track. Punchestown definitely suits front runners down to the ground, but every fence we've watched so far, El Fabiolo has brushed the birch. Dysart Dynamo is clearing them and getting ground.
So what does that mean?
Punchestown are a good fence. They're a good sized fence in Punchestown.
I've felt them when we did our course walk there.
I just think if El Fabiolo brushes one early and gets away with it, he might get a little bit higher. But if he goes and keeps getting as low as he got here, second last, that was his best jump. But watch him at the last. If El Fabiolo does this at Punchestown, Paul Hannon will be standing beside him. Oof. Now, obviously, poor old Dysart Dynamo falls over, but I think he's going to have to jump with a little bit more respect at Punchestown than he did at Cheltenham.
It is the ultimate irony to me that Dysart Dynamo, for the second Cheltenham running, has ended up on the floor, because like you, I think he's essentially an excellent jumper. Yeah,
and I think the flat track will suit him, or the rolling track will suit him at Punchestown, but I think El Fabiolo is the better horse, but I just think the jumping could make a difference.
It's interesting. And also front running at Punchestown as well.
Big thing, but I can't imagine Paul Townend's going to let him off.
Too far back. But the fences might cause him to be.
Maybe, but it's going to be interesting.
Okay, that is interesting. That has piqued my interest. Right, okay, let's have a look at Not Long Till May, a fabulous second in the Turners. 2 days after that Arkle was run, moved over to the new course. He finished second to Stage Star. He'd previously been running in smaller fields. We thought he might be outclassed. Not a bit of it. He was fantastic. No,
he wasn't, and he was in a pretty good position all the way as well. Obviously, a lot of the attention here was to Mighty Potter and Appreciated, who were all behind Not Long Till May. And when they faced into the back straight, Harry Cobden had gotten a really soft lead on Stage Star. But Not Long Till May was the one who bridged that gap and dragged the rest of the field to Stage Star the further into the race they got. And at times down the hill you were thinking, wow, what is Not Long Till May? It was one I completely overlooked. And you're thinking, he's going to get involved here. He's getting involved here. Good jump at the third last, but off the home turn, when he gets in front of Stage Star, you're thinking, is he going to go and win? And he's run, look here, he's travelling arguably better than most of them. So dropping down in trip, is that going to suit him? They're quicken off the bend, and Stage Star gets a rally down the inside for Harry Cobden. Both good at the second last, and to me Stage Star saw it out better after being given a really good ride by Harry Cobden. But I think not now till May is long till May is a runner, and I think back at 2 miles will suit him.
You do, right? Okay, but essentially the Arkle form is deep, isn't it? Much deeper than this.
It is. Appreciated hasn't franked it. Neither has Germs de Burley. Unfortunately, Mighty Potter was ill-fated at Fairyhouse, so and Stage Star let it down at Aintree. But sometimes you can read too much into that. I think that was the career best from Stage Star, and it can be hard for horses to back up career bests.
Okay, so that should be an interesting matchup between El Fabiano, Dysart Diamond, not long till May, and if Samoa turns up.
Yeah, he was just too keen at Aintree, but he ran a really good race.
Absolutely, yeah, he did run really well. So that's for the Barberstown Castle Novices Chase, and when you rejoin us, we'll be looking ahead to Friday and Saturday. So now it's time to have a look ahead to the Friday and the Saturday of Punchestown. These 2 days coming as a bit of a pair because we're obviously further away from the days. It's more of a guesswork about what's going to be turning up.
It is, and Ace is starting as well, so we have to hurry up a bit.
Well, we were just talking too much, weren't we?
Rabbit.
Just for a change. Right, OK, let's have a look at the Paddy Power Champion Hurdle, shall we? State Man is 1-2, Vaban is 7-2, Pied Piper 6-1, Sharjah 8, Zanahir 10s, as is Echoes in Rain. Echoes in Rain could run against mares. It's a clash between the Champion Hurdle and the county, essentially, from the Cheltenham Festival. Let's have a look at the Champion Hurdle, in which State Man was second, Vauban fourth, and Zanahir managed to split them again for third, at the place from which he was subsequently disqualified the previous year. Yeah,
and obviously Zanahir's had a run since, but Vauban was ridden probably handier than I thought he might be. He was in front of State Man early in the race. Paul Town had obviously elected to follow Nico de Bonneville, which was the obvious thing to do, and Zanahir dropped in at the back to pick up the pieces. I probably have seen Vauban jump better than he jumped on this occasion. He definitely, early in the back straight, just wasn't as fluent as he could be. He was in front of State Man for a lot of the race, and he was in Danny's hands a little bit. He walked on there when he could have picked up and jumped it. And I don't think that ultimately meant he should have finished second or anything, but I think he probably could have ran better than the bare bones of his form looks. But look, this race was always going to be about what Constitution Hill did, and could State Man maybe get close to him or not. Zanahir, I thought, was given a canny ride to sneak around and rob what he could. He's gone to Aintree since. But look, it's going to be State Man v Vauban again. I don't know if Zanahir will run again or not. And I thought for a second here State Man was going to go and at least,
I think Paul Townend did as well,
make Nico go and see what was under the tank on Constitution Hill. The camera switches and you're thinking they're even in the same race. And State Man, he kept plugging away. I thought he might find a bit more. He beat Vauban like he has done all year, but that's all.
Didn't Paul Townend just accepted the defeat, didn't he? He was just going to be second and he accepted it.
Yeah, he probably did, yeah. But having said that, they are herd animals, and State Man wasn't exactly chasing after Constitution Hill, was he? If anything, he's getting further behind him. I
thought Vauban ran pretty well, in deep. I take the point about the hurdling, but, he was properly put in the race to mix it.
I do too, and I just think if he jumped a bit better, he could have finished a lot closer to State Man there, and I think that would have been a progression again for Vauban. I think he'd get closer to him in Punchestown. Yeah,
I was just about to ask that question. You answered it before I asked it. Right, OK, let's have a look at the county hurdle, shall we? We have the 2nd, 4th and 5th potentially lining up. Sharjah, of course, was 4th. He's already gone on to Aintree as well. But 2nd was Pied Piper, 5th was Ballyadam. How did you see this?
As they travelled, Ballyadam probably travelled best of them all.
Again.
Yeah, as he usually does. Maybe Punchestown will suit him, but I think he has to improve. Sharjah ran really well at Aintree, and it'll be interesting if Sharjah and Zanahir come from Aintree to Punchestown or not. We'll see during the weekend. And Pied Piper, he looked like he was going to win the county hurdle for a lot of it, and ultimately didn't. Favre beat him, but look, the Pied Piper and Sharjah are not similarly displaced turning in. Ballyadam is travelling really well. He doesn't see it out up the hill here, and he fades after being ridden much handier. But Pied Piper, Look, he's probably was behind Vauban as a juvenile, and it's probably still behind him.
Do you think a fully on-song Davy Russell would have won this on Pied Piper?
I have definitely seen Davy Russell be stronger, yeah. But I think Davy Russell said that himself. You don't need me saying it.
Yeah. And also the horse pitched on landing a little bit, didn't he? But that's
Yeah.
as good. It's off a mark of 154. Sharjah was fourth off a mark of 155. Do you think these particular circumstances suited Pied Piper well? You know, a big field handicap, whereas this kind of race is going to be different, and that was the kind of race he'd been running in for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think it will. I just think that I don't know if he improved any more than Vauban. I don't think he has. I think it'll be Vauban Stateman. That was a good run from Pied Piper, but I think it'll be Vauban Stateman, and I think Vauban will get closer.
Okay, right, fine. So Vauban to get closer to Stateman for Ruby. We're going to move on to the Alana Holmes Champion Novice Hurdle. And at this stage, we've got any number of potential runners, but the ones that you probably want to focus on are Champ Kylie, who was third in the Ballymore.
In Perret Pass.
Yeah. Fenacross, of course, is
in there as well.
Yeah, he's franked the form at Aintree of the Supreme. He was the one that we didn't mention earlier when we were talking up the Supreme form. And, of course, on Perret Pass, also for Willie Mullins, like Champ Kylie is. Let's have a look back at the Ballymore. We've already had a quick look at it through the prism of Gaelic Warrior. Now we're going to have a look at it from the first and the third.
Yeah, and I think in Perret Pass is the best horse, but what I did notice was we know Champ Kylie jumps a bit to his right, but I hadn't noticed him hanging as badly right as he did prior to Cheltenham. He won at Naas here, which is the Lawlers, which is left-handed, but I thought he was really bad at Cheltenham, and then he had to have a row with him as hard for a lot of the race, especially here. You see Danny's left hand is up, his right hand is down. In the next hurdle, the fourth hurdle down the hill, and on the landing side as well, he goes right on the approach, and when he lands you can see Danny's whole body leaning in to trying to keep him straight as he's going to take off, land and get back. In Perret Pass was always in the right place, right behind him, and had a pretty free run through the race in Perret Pass because the one in front of him was going so right. I mean, it's just a golden highway down on his inside. So I think going back left-handed, Champ Kylie can run considerably better, but I would still expect in Perret Pass to uphold the form. He shows plenty at home. He's been in good form. Doesn't show a massive amount at home, but he's been in good form since Cheltenham, and I thought this was a really good performance on the day.
He's just better everywhere, isn't he?
I think he just is. He's won at Punchestown before, so he's won right-handed and left-handed. We know he gets the trip, and yeah, he's going to be really hard to beat.
Yeah, he's effective over shorter. You know, he's effective at this trip here. I like his hurdling. I think he's a really, really good hurdler.
There's nothing to dislike.
No, nothing at all. What do you think he might be next season?
I'd say it'll depend on what Constitution Hill is.
Yeah, fair enough. It probably will.
If you do, I'd be looking at it anyway. So I would.
So you'd think if the Constitution Hill team go to the to novice chasing,
I'd be amazed if they go novice chasing.
Would you?
Yeah.
Why?
Just would.
It's a shame because they were putting down all of these bold plans, and then they seem to be going slightly colder. But then they've turned around again. Nicky Henderson has sort of said everything's on the table.
I'm sure they are. But ultimately what will be left on the table is what we're interested in.
Okay. Right. Let's move on to Saturday, shall we? And have a look at the Coolmore Kew Gardens Mares Champion Hurdle. Oh, it's Mogul, sorry, this year. Apologies. It was Kew Gardens last year. And so there are the entries. And, of course, the race that's key for this is the Mares Hurdle at Cheltenham. We don't have the winner, Honeysuckle, but we do potentially have a whole load of other horses coming in instead.
Yeah, we do. Look, probably won't have Marie's Rock either, or maybe we will, but she ran an entry last week. But look, this was a slowly run race. So up to the first hurdle, Honeysuckle is in front, Brandy Love is just behind her. They're doing 24, 25, 26 miles an hour. They weren't going quick. Johnny Burke took the scruff of the neck as they jumped the second hurdle down into the home straight and goes on with Love Envoy. But look, you've Tierra Glory, Echoes and Rain, Love Envoy, Queen's Brook, she wears it well, and Brandy Love. Johnny here decides that Rachel's is going too slow and allows Love Envoy to go by and ups the tempo. But he didn't up it for long. He got in front and decided, you know what, I'm going to slow it down as well.
It's a great
clever
ride.
riding, yeah. I think the first two got terrific rides here because by the time they get up past the winning post away from the stands, Johnny, having upped it to 30 miles an hour to get in front of Rachel, has slowed it right back down to 25, 26 miles an hour here, climbing away from the stands. And you've got so many stayers behind that are all following Honeysuckle, but they're all going too slow. I thought it was, there's Brandy Love, Echoes and Rain, Tear of Glory. They're all way back off a really slow pace. But we know from horse racing, the facts tell you that when they're going slow, you can't be too far back. And now they do quicken it down the back straight. They got up into roughly sort of 30 miles an hour all the way down the back straight. They got to the top of the hill and they dropped to 28, back under 30. And then, of course, the sprint starts. But everyone starts to sprint together. And they come down the hill doing 34 miles an hour, but everybody is. So now it's a dash, so whatever position you're in, you're all sprinting at the same time. Everybody's getting dragged, and it's really hard when you're back in the field to make ground when those in front of you are sprinting. So the ones behind were always going to struggle to get the two good mares in front. That was Love Envoy and Honeysuckle, and ultimately Honeysuckle beats Love Envoy. Now last year at Punchestown, after winning at Cheltenham, Love Envoy came to Fairyhouse and couldn't manage to repel Brandy Love. But Brandy Love hadn't been to Cheltenham. She has been to Cheltenham this year. Queensbrook got up on the outside there. Epitante and Marie's Rock have both run since, so I don't know which of them are going to run. But I think going right-handed, that's going to be a negative for Brandy Love. I don't see what's going to make the run in a Punchestown either.
I was about to ask that.
So it could be there for Love Envoy. Now she's not going to have Johnny Burkey. Obviously Burkey's raced at Cheltenham, so somebody else is going to get the chance. But the two mares that dictated this were the two that pulled well clear. Echoes and Rain ran a really good race because she came from last, but this was about riding, and those two got the best rides.
She's got pace though, hasn't she? I always think that the fast run 2 miles suits her best, and that might account for why she managed to get past some other horses. Queensbrook on the paper, that was a career best performance. Okay, if you wondering where the pace is here, who would you think is the likeliest winner?
I don't see pace there, and I think whoever can get on the front and do it right could end up riding the winner.
Who will be? I mean, potentially Love Envoy, as long as...
I think Love Envoy could do it again,
Yeah. OK, well, let's have a look at the 4-year-olds next, shall we? The Ballymore Champion 4-year-old hurdle. And we've got a number of juveniles taking each other on. Again, quite a few horses here may not go. Blood Destiny, who got too lit up in the Triumph, is there. Gust of Wind, who was 4th. Jazzy Matty, the winner of the Fred Winter. The Boodles Fred Winter is there. We turn over the page. We've also got the fillies, Cinsa, Lossiemouth, Galamarceau, of course. Right, well, let's have a look at the Triumph Hurdle itself, and this is where Lossiemouth stamped her authority. She'd been managing to win steadily run races earlier in the season. She was unfortunate at the Dublin Racing Festival. She got her revenge on Galamarceau.
She most certainly did. She was ridden handily. Galamarceau and Lossiemouth were pretty close together going to the first, just behind Blood Destiny. There was obviously a strong gallop on here early, but the horse in front didn't keep going for that long.
Jupiter de Gite,
no. And led them for considerable distance. Now Blood Destiny and Gust of Wind have both gone to Fairyhouse and disappointed. Takeo is declared in a Takeo's in the entries, of course. He's declared in the handicap tomorrow, and Zenta went to entry and won. But watch the third hurdle here. Hypotensis heads off right and bumps into Lossiemouth, and Paul had to switch back inside John McConnell's runner then. But this race had slowed down by the time they got to the top of the hill, heading for the second last hurdle, and Lossiemouth pulls away up on the outside and probably gets involved sooner than Paul Townend would have liked. And this race really quickened down the hill. Galamarceau was a bit keen when the race slowed down, but she was also close enough, so was Zenta, and ultimately Lossiemouth just stamps her quality all over this race. She's a really good jumper. She had done very little wrong herself going to Cheltenham. She'd been unlucky at the Dublin Racing Festival, ears pricked at the second last, and she quickened well and saw out the trip really well. She's going to be hard to beat, Lydia.
She will be. She's also got that deadly £7 mare's allowance as well. Could Blood Destiny run a totally different race? There were horses playing up all around him. He ended up being in the wrong part of the race and just got far too lit up.
He could, but he was too disappointing at Fairyhouse. And the horse that beat him in Fairyhouse of Andrew McNamara is the filly, the mare of Heffernans that had come from Germany. She was really good on that occasion. She's going to line up here, but she put Blood Destiny in his place at Fairyhouse, so it's probably hard to fancy him.
No, fair enough. OK, well, let's have a look at another Lossiemouth form line, because this draws in another of her stable companions. There are so many juveniles, Willie Mullins, this season. That is Zarak the Brave. Now, we haven't seen him since he was beaten at Fairyhouse by Lossiemouth, and it was a bit of a surprise at the time. It
was a bit of a surprise at the time, and similar weight conditions, so there's no swing at the weights here for Zarak. Zarek the Brave for this defeat, and Lossiemouth has just gone on through the season. Now Zarek the Brave got a great split through on the inside, but he fumbled the second last. Danny quickened down the outside on Lossiemouth. She jumped the last really well, and Zarek the Brave missed it again. He picked up a setback on that occasion. He missed a bit of time after it, but he does look to be in good form. But to be honest with you, I don't see how he bridges that gap.
Well, the only thing I would say is that this is a steadily run race. Now, Lossiemouth has shown herself to be fairly impervious to pace, but she has had a lot of runs. I mean, she went to the Dublin Racing Festival, ended up having quite a hard run. She went to the Triumph. He's had a break, and might it be a strongly run race? Might he get at more of a pace that would suit him better?
I don't think so. You're talking about the same
Right.
horse again.
Okay.
So unless whoever's riding Zarek the Brave decides that I need a stay in race to win and jumps and goes,
Well,
could
there's another
happen.
angle.
Yeah, it could happen, but that's what would have to happen, I'd imagine.
Okay. Right, well, that's how we see the Grade 1s at Punchestown panning out. We're also going to doff our caps to the people who have topped the championships on both sides of the Irish Sea. Quite often that might be decided this week at Sandown or at Punchestown, but I think they're already all home and hosed. So we can take a look at the champion trainer in Britain, Paul Nicholls, for the 14th time. He's one behind Martin Pipe in the overall standings. Brian Hughes now retains his title. That's the third occasion on which he's won. Luca Morgan is the champion conditional. JP McManus wins champion only on both sides of the Irish Sea for the 21st time in Ireland. 4 consecutive times. Willie Mullins has been trainer for 18 times now, champion trainer 18 times, 17 on the bounce. Paul Townend wins it for the 6th successive year, and Michael O'Sullivan, perhaps the jockey find of the season.
Yeah, most definitely, and what a season he's had. I mean, Cheltenham success, Royal Bond success, champion conditional. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and a couple of wins at the Cheltenham Festival to boot, a Marine Nationale to be looking forward to next season. Well, that's it. We've come to the end of the road for the 2022-23 season. Thank you very much for your company all the way along the way.
Yeah,
it's been good.
It's cold when we started and it's still cold when we finished.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? Thank you for your company along the road as well. We'll see you roadies back again in November. For now, goodbye.
Get money back as a free bet if your horse finishes second, third or fourth in this race at the Punchestown Festival today. Paddy Power!